She was just 21 years old, a brilliant nursing student, a devoted daughter, a loving sister. On February 9, 2004, Maura Murray got into her car and drove alone along Route NH-112 in New Hampshire. A few hours later, her car was found crashed into a snowbank, but Maura had simply vanished. No signs of a struggle, no footprints in the snow, no body. The case quickly turned into one of the biggest criminal mysteries in American history. And today, more than 20 years later, we're still trying to answer the question that haunts everyone who's followed this case. What happened to Maura Murray? It all began with a series of unusual decisions. Maura Murray was known for being organized, focused, and meticulous. But in the week leading up to her disappearance, she started acting strangely. On February 5th, she got into a minor car accident while driving a borrowed car on campus. Shortly after, she called her father, Fred Murray, and said she was shaken up. Then on Monday, February 9th, Maura emailed her professors and said she had to leave due to a death in the family. But that wasn't true. Her family later confirmed that no one had died. At 3:40 p.m., she withdrew $280, nearly all the money she had. Then she went to a liquor store and bought wine, Baileys, and Kahlua. At 4:37 p.m., she made what would be her last known phone call, just to check her voicemail. After that, she hit the road, heading north. None of her friends knew where she was going. According to her father, Maura had searched for information about a cabin in Bartlett, New Hampshire, a place the family used to vacation, but no reservation was ever made. It's nighttime, Monday, February 9th, 2004. At around 7:27 p.m., a local resident in rural Haverhill, New Hampshire, notices something unusual. A car, a red Saturn, stopped against a snowbank, slightly damaged. The location, a remote pitch-black stretch of Route 112, also known as Wild Ammonoosuc Road. Soon after, a man named Butch Atwood, driving a private school bus, pulls up beside the vehicle. Inside is Maura. According to Butch, she appeared calm but declined his help. She claimed she had already called an AAA, but that wasn't true. There was no record of a call to AAA. Suspicious, Butch drove back home and called the police at 7:43 p.m. When officers arrived at the scene at 7:46, what they found was pure mystery. The car was locked. The airbags had deployed. A white rag was stuffed into the tailpipe. Inside the car, her wallet, ID, alcohol, and her cell phone. But Maura was gone. There were no visible footprints in the snow. No witnesses saw where she went. And one chilling detail, a neighbor later reported that Butch's school bus had been parked nose to nose with Maura's car. An odd position for someone simply offering help. That seemingly minor detail would later fuel one of the case's darker theories. Meanwhile, local police and volunteers began the search for a young woman who vanished into the cold night, leaving behind more questions than answers. In the hours following her disappearance, the rural area of Haverhill was overtaken by an improvised task force. Search dogs picked up Maura's scent, but only for about 100 yards. After that, nothing. Her trail vanished as if she disappeared into thin air. To investigators, this pointed to a disturbing possibility. Someone may have stopped on the road and taken Maura far away. The next day, February 10th, a national alert was issued. The case was gaining attention, but the frozen ground and the lack of witnesses made things even harder. Fred Murray, Maura's father, arrived in town that same day. Desperate, he launched his own search effort, putting pressure on local authorities and the media. Alongside Maura's boyfriend, Bill Rausch, he gave statements to police, but made one thing crystal clear: she didn't run away, and she didn't kill herself. Divers searched frozen rivers. Teams swept the woods. Even helicopters equipped with thermal cameras scanned the landscape, but still, nothing. Soon, people started noticing eerie similarities between Maura's case and the disappearance of another young woman, Brianna Maitland. She vanished in Vermont. Just 1 month later, both were young, both disappeared in rural areas. Both left cars behind under suspicious circumstances, but police were clear. There was no evidence linking the two cases. In 2009, Maura's case was officially labeled a cold case. In 2016, the FBI stepped in, and in January 2022, Maura's name was added to VCAP, a national database tracking violent crimes with possible serial patterns. That move reignited a chilling question. Was Maura the victim of a highway predator, the kind of criminal who operates silently in remote area and vanishes without a trace? In recent years, new leads have emerged, but no concrete answers. In 2019, police searched an abandoned house after an anonymous tip. Nothing was found. In 2021, human remains were discovered 20 miles from the crash site, but DNA tests showed they were centuries old. In 2022, the largest ground search in years was launched in Landoff, New Hampshire. It turned up empty-handed. For nearly 2 decades, the disappearance of Maura Murray has become one of the most debated mysteries in U.S. history. And it raises a question that still echoes today. What really happened to Maura on that frozen February night? Let's break down the leading theories, one by one. Theory 1. Maura ended her own life. Maura was under intense emotional pressure, issues with her boyfriend, a university suspension, her father's car accident just days before. According to this theory, she drove to a remote area, possibly intending to disconnect completely, maybe even harm herself. But there's a problem. No body was ever found. She took belongings that suggested she intended to keep going. And according to her father, she was too organized to vanish on impulse. Theory 2. Maura ran away to start over. She searched for secluded destinations, took cash, clothes, and informed her professors she'd be gone for a week. This theory suggests Maura planned her disappearance, maybe out of fear, guilt, or a desperate need to escape. Some even claim she was seen years later in Canada, but none of those claims were ever confirmed. And her bank accounts, emails, and social media have shown zero activity since February 9th, 2004. Theory 3. Maura was the victim of a random crime. Maybe Maura accepted a ride from a stranger with bad intentions. The area where she vanished is rural, poorly lit, and surrounded by dense woods. It was the kind of place where someone with bad intentions could act unnoticed. This theory is reinforced by a chilling detail. Scent tracking dogs lost her trail suddenly, as if she'd gotten into a vehicle. Theory 4. Someone close was involved. Some eyes turned toward Maura's boyfriend, Bill Rausch. Deleted emails, reports of arguments, even claims of controlling behavior. However, Bill was in a different city at the time of her disappearance and was never officially considered a suspect by police. Still, many believe Maura's inner circle may know more than they've shared. Theory 5. Involvement of Butch Atwood, the bus driver. He was the last known person to see Maura alive. His account contained small inconsistencies. He said she declined help, but he also claimed she looked cold and nervous. His bus was oddly positioned, facing her car, according to a neighbor. Some have questioned the timeline between when he spoke with Maura and when he contacted police, though no official evidence has ever linked him to her disappearance. He passed away in 2009 and was never formally investigated as a suspect. 2 decades later, one thing remains certain. The only thing we know is that Maura Murray is still missing. And with her, a piece of the truth is missing too. Maura Murray's story feels like a Hollywood script. A bright young woman, a mysterious trip, a crash on a deserted road, and then nothing. No trace, no sign of life, no body. But this isn't fiction. This happened, and it still hurts. What do the facts actually point to? Based on everything we know today, official data, investigations, search efforts, her behavior before the incident, and interviews, the most likely scenario is this. Maura was emotionally shaken, yes. She made plans to disappear for a while, yes. But there's no strong indication she intended to end her life or vanish forever. The total lack of financial, digital, or physical activity since 2004 supports a darker possibility. Maura was likely the victim of a crime, a swift act on a cold road at the worst possible moment. It could have been a random stranger or someone who had been watching her. The silenced truth. Mistakes during the initial investigation, mishandling of the crash scene, and delays in raising the alarm may have allowed crucial evidence to slip away. And that may have been the most damaging mistake of all. How early missteps may have cost us the truth. A case that refuses to die. Today, Maura would be 42. Her father, Fred, still fights to keep her memory alive. The case has become a book, a documentary, even an academic study. But what he wants most, an answer, never came, and maybe never will. If you saw something, if you know something, no matter how small, speak. Because behind every mystery, there's a family, there are lives, and the truth always deserves to be found.